Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 7th of September, and coming off the Labor Day weekend, new fund money and that, not a whole lot of action. I mean, we do have a bar for the off day, and pretty much it just reflects the European and Asian sessions. So, but overall, what we're looking at is, well, we've got Magenta crossing below for the first time in a while. You're really not going to end a long streak until you have the white at a minimum move above red, but ideally you've got to get white above magenta. And you can see each time they meet and reject or get close to meeting and then reject, you get the up moves. And it's a very simple construct here with the NBI indicator, and plays out very well from a daily standpoint, simply because of the broader nature of the overall market, and that holds through time all the way back. Not hard for you to look at, but also getting incorporated into our daily Opus strategy for that as well. We'll take a look at some of the developments on the new strategy front in a minute. From an NQ standpoint, likewise, look at a 2.45 for a white NBI. You're not going to see many drawdowns when it remains below that 10 level, and that's pretty clear. It's not until it gets usually about 8.5 is the key number, but 10 simple, easy, clean gives us a clear idea that things are still going. And of course, the beginnings of gold starting to do its takeoff. Not surprising there. You would expect cryptos to make the similar kind of move. From a euro standpoint, again, they're pushing that to elevate it simply to try and help out earnings in that. And plus, this is a portion of that devaluation of the dollar. It's not as though the European Union isn't printing just as much as just a slower rate than the U.S. is going. Of course, the U.S. economy is much larger than the EU. And from a Bitcoin standpoint, you can see here that holiday session, nice bounce on the futures open, but then it hit a little bit of weakness as the white NBI does cross above the magenta there, and that led to the breakdown that we're seeing, which you would expect with the white rising over and falling magenta yellow move to the zero line, and that's exactly what we got. And right at the previous algo level that we had up at the 51K level, so no surprise with that, doing pretty much exactly what we would expect. So here you have from the 50K. Now this happens to be the Opus 2, Power Mode 2. Opus 2, if we look at from a study standpoint, yeah, it's the Opus 2T, and these are some of the adjustments that I've made to it. A lot of work, but what we've allowed is for shorts into the setup along with the long configuration. That's excellent profit factor from an intraday setup, and this goes back all the way until December of middle of December, so almost full 9 months of trading in there. And from a performance graph standpoint, you can see quite excellent. No objections to that. Again, it's still going to get better because this was just breaking out moves above and below 50%, as well as then parsing all of the interplays of the DOC, NBI, includes the shakeout as well as extreme, actually. What's interesting about it is market time, 72%, so that's pretty darn active. Not a whole lot of time where you're not getting a signal that's relevant, which I think is great. And for me, it was most important in this bullish period to be finding a near equality in the number of trades short and long, because as we've seen, plenty of that action happens to the downside, and almost approaching a 50% win rate. And actually this will go over that. There are just some adjustments that need to be made within that setup, where each of them in their different name cells under different conditions. So you have cell number 5 there, number 2, 3, and 9. And the idea is that we're really limiting drawdowns when we have certain setups they're less likely, but allowing us to capture long runs that really keep it nicely focused. Does it apply to 5K chart? Yeah, haven't really adjusted it much for a 5K chart, but we can look at the results from 5K standpoint. A lot lower. Really haven't done any work on the adjustments from the short side, but still plenty of room for improvement on that. But that's just from our raw data going into the 5K, and that still produces positive net returns. So you know we're on to something pretty strong when you can use it with a 5K. That's a lot of trades within that short period of time. When we look at the actual intraday, this was Friday's action going through. It was mostly soft in between, a little bit of chop back and forth as we started to rise. What you'll note is some of these little areas where we get something like this, the recapture is an element that I've been working with on trying to capture all of the different configurations that take place within a trade standpoint as opposed to just a signal standpoint. And of course you can see buy setup there. Something like this where like the red that had MBI white working the program to just read a move to the 0%. For a turnaround cover when you get your pivot back up of blue over the D red, right there would be the cover, so that should turn into a profitable one. Once you get those little configurations squared away, the profit factor will skyrocket because this goes from what would be a loss to a win, and a decent one at that from an intraday. And so you multiply that over the course of entire trading range, and it becomes a significant change because you're never going to let it go from a 50% to 0 and then be into the negative side. So little things like that, making it work, it takes quite a bit of effort to get it to respond that way, but slowly but surely I'll probably send you out this version of the Opus T so that you can have it, because what I've done with it is already pre-marked all of the variables. This one has probably 40 inputs because each of these buy signals has like a series of 4 or 5 criteria within them that are adjustable. And I haven't even had the opportunity to optimize those, even though when you do optimize, it's not going to change. These are all based off of the MBI signals, and that the only thing that's adjusted is maybe values that are slightly above or below within the range period. And that's necessary because depending on time frame that you're at, like when you're talking about a daily, you're going to need a little bit faster reaction on some of the setups, simply because if you wait, it could be 2-3 days that the action is moved strongly in one way, whereas on an intraday it's much faster. And so the range on that, the spikes will be higher, relatively speaking. So it gives you that flexibility within it, and I think that's all good. Also from me, trade analysis standpoint, and maintaining low drawdowns, that's the key, and the number of series trades, winners versus losers. Longest losing is 6 in a row, which that's fantastic when you're talking about the winner being 12, and the difference between what you're winning on those trades versus losing, pretty consistent. This is all 10 contract, but of course that's all flexible within the inputs. You can adjust how many contracts and vary it that way. So all good from that standpoint. As always, though, as soon as I'm ready for alerts and that, I'll be adding those into it. But at least from this standpoint, also I've removed the values so they don't pop up on your screen before we would had it, so that the stop that was following would show up. In this case, not entirely necessary, and I'll make it a feature that you can turn on or off at your discretion. As always, though, I will keep putting up these details as I make more improvements. Trade well, and we'll talk to you later.